Yeah, so welcome once again to our classes. And before we start, we'd like to thank Starbase Media for enabling us to produce these contents and reach to you learners or students. So our topic for today is equation of a straight line. So this is a paper 1 topic that is found in form 2. So what we basically want to do here is to give you the very basics of this topic so that whenever you are tackling a question under this topic, then you can be comfortable with the contents, the concepts, and the formulas that are involved. So under equation of a straight line, what we are majorly interested in are the contents of that particular topic. So here you will be required to learn about gradient of a line, equation of a straight line, forms of equations of a straight line. You will also be required to know the x and y intercepts. You will also be required to be able to interpret graphs of a straight line. You'll also be required to work out the equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. You're also going to be required to get midpoints of lines. You're also going to be asked to get the equation of perpendicular bisectors. You're also going to be asked to get intersection points of lines. You're also going to be asked about the lengths or modulus of a line. So these are the 10 concepts or the 10 contents that are majorly tested at KCSE level. So pay attention so that you are then able to tackle each and every concept. So starting by definition, when we are talking about equations of a straight line, what we are majorly interested in is to know the nature of slopes. So our major interest in this topic is to know the nature of slopes or elevation. So you ask yourself, how steep is this place? So the degree of steepness gives us the nature of slope or the elevations of that particular item. For example, when you put a ladder against the wall, there's a certain extent to which you tilt it. So that is what we are going to be observing in this topic. So we basically talk about the nature of slopes, and the nature of slopes is given by what we call the gradient. So a gradient basically tells us how steep a given line is. Yeah. And then another important aspect to know in this topic is that the equation of a straight line is given by the formula y is equals to mx plus c. This is how we give the equations of a straight line, by saying y is equals to mx plus c. So I ask you to understand what y is equals to mx plus c means. So basically this m, it signifies the gradient of the line. And as we will be moving by, I'll tell you the importance of understanding the m, which is the gradient of the line. And then the c is the y-intercept. When I say y-intercept, I simply mean where the line cuts the y-axis. So I'll be having a graphical representation on a Cartesian plane so that you are then able to understand what we are talking about. So a Cartesian plane is basically a plane that is formed by the intersection of these two axes. We have the y-axis, that is the vertical axis, and then the horizontal axis is called the x-axis. So assuming we had a line, a straight line passing through this line, the Cartesian plane, the point of intersection of the Cartesian plane is called the origin. And let us remember that in this our Cartesian plane, points are labeled. For example, you can see we can have this point as point A, we can have this as point B, we can have this as point C, so long as it's a point on the line. So we want to check how we can get gradient of such a line. So we are going to have a point, for example, A, point A here. And I said on a Cartesian plane, we give points by referencing by x, comma, y. That is how we reference points on a Cartesian plane. You start with the x value and then you go to the y value. Then let us get another point on the line B. So this B now we are going to call x1, comma, y1. So when you want to get the gradient of such a line, we are going to see that there has been a movement from point A to point B. And that movement is signified by this. There's a movement on the x-axis and there's also a movement on the y-axis. So this change is what gives us the gradient, the change in y and the change in x. So remember, for us to get the gradient, which is m, we are going to say, for us to get the gradient m, we are going to get the change in the y value. We are going to see that our y was initially here. This was our y. Then it has moved to this point, y1. Then x was also here. X was also here. And x has moved to this point. So you can see there is a difference. So this difference is what we call change in x. And this difference is what we call change in y. So change in x is given by minusing x1 minus x. Or you can say, we can even say this is x1, x2, however much you label it, there's no problem, provided you know we are talking about destination minus origin. Destination minus origin. So even if you label this y1 and then this y2, there's no problem, provided you know that you're coming from this point to the other point. So it begs the answer that gradient, therefore, which is signified by letter m, is equals to the change in y over the change in x, which means that gradient is equals to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Basically, origin, destination minus origin. So this is how we get the gradient of a line. So when you have 2 points, simply label them. One you make x1, the other you make x2. One you label y1, the other you label y2. And then you get the difference. What you get is what we call gradient. So basically, that is how we get the gradient of a line. And then, when we are now interrogating the equation y is equals to mx plus c, we need to understand graphically what that means. It means that when I'm talking about the gradient, I've already told you how to get it. And then when we talk about the y-intercept is where the line cuts the y-axis. So here is where the line cuts the y-axis. And which point is that? It is this point here. Let us call it R. R is the y-intercept because we find that that line is cutting the y-axis at this point. And what is important to know is that at y-intercept, the value of x is normally 0. So that is very important to know. So provided you've been told that this point is the y-intercept, automatically you should know that the value of x at that point is 0. So therefore, when you are giving your answer for the y-intercept, it should be therefore 0, comma, the y value that is indicated there. So when I have a graph here, where, for example, here is 2, here is 1, and here is 2, and here is 3, then I have a line passing through here. Then when I want to find this point t, its coordinate, I'm simply going to say t is 0, comma, y. And then this place where the line cuts, let me call it Q, where it cuts the x-axis is called x-intercept. So that is what we call x-intercept. So this is what we call x-intercept. Where the line, straight line cuts the x-axis is called x-intercept. So at x-intercept, you can also witness that the value of y is equals to 0. So anytime I'm giving the answer or the coordinate of the x-intercept, I'll give it in the format of x, 0. So if this my point was point Q and maybe it was -3, so my coordinate for the x-intercept will be x, which is -3, 0. So that is the coordinate of the x-intercept. So the most important thing is to understand that at y-intercept, x is 0, and at x-intercept, y is 0. So I think with that concept, now you can understand the very basic concepts of equations of a straight line. So moving forward, I hope it's going to be easy when we are working out examples. But basically, this is the introduction. Yeah, so as I was saying, our next point was to look at how we can form an equation of a straight line. And the first point is when you are given a point on the line and a gradient. How do you go about it? And the best way to go through this is to look at an example. So let me write this example. Question. Find the equation of the line with the gradient -2 that passes through the point 3, -4. So we have a question there where we are asked to find the equation of the line with the gradient of -2 and passes through the point 3, -4. So here you can see clearly that we have been given a point, which is this, and I said whenever you are given a point, you mark it x, y, because that is the reference we'll make to it on the Cartesian plane. And then the gradient, you simply label it m. You see, mathematics is very easy because this is the only subject where you are given. You see, you've been given the gradient. You've been given a point. What they want you to do is to form an equation of the straight line. So what you're going to do, you're going to say y, equation of a straight line is y is equals to mx plus c. And I have all these things because I have y, I have x. The only thing I'm looking for is c. Where is y? Y is this. -4 is equals to m is gradient, is this. You just say mathematics is hard, but there is nothing. X, uko nayo. Where is x? This. You just replace in your equation. So c will be, this is -4 plus 6 is equals to c. So our c will be, is it negative or is it +2? Yes? My assistant Castro, are you on the calculator? So I think that will give you 2. So once you found c, you are done. You simply write your equation now is y is equals to m is -2x plus c, which is 2. But when you find c is a negative, you just write -2. So as simple as such, we have scored 3 marks and we are happy. Or another way through which we can form equation of a straight line is when you are given 2 points. When given 2 points on the line. And I can explain this by giving you an example, but just an overview. When you're given 2 points, the first thing is to find the gradient. That is the very first thing you do. Find the gradient. How do you find the gradient? Gradient is change in y over change in x. With that gradient, you take 1 point of these 2 points given, and then you are able now to substitute and find the equation of the line. So a question in point is this. Find the equation of a straight line of the straight line passing through the points -5, 7 and 1, 3. Simple. What do? I label. That is the first thing. I label. This is, I'm coming from this point to this point. So this is my x1. This is my y1. This is my x2. This is my y2. Remember the concept I taught as I was introducing? It is destination minus origin. So we are going to say gradient. First of all is to find the gradient. Gradient is equals to change in y over change in x. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Simple. y2, 3 minus. Here is where there is a challenge with most of the students because they don't take keen note of the signs. Look at what happens in x2. x2 is 1 minus, but here there is another minus. So it is advisable that you use brackets so that you don't confuse that. This is where most students go wrong. They ignore the use of bracket and therefore they come up with a different answers apart from the rest of the people. So our m, which is the gradient, will be 4. Then this is plus. It becomes negative. This is 3 minus 7. 3 minus 7 is negative 4 over 1 minus 5. Negative times negative is equals to positive. Have that in mind. So we are going to have 1 plus 6. So that is 1 plus 5, which is 6. When you simplify this, your m is negative 2 over 3. With this m, you can do what we did previously. You take a point. You can either take this point or you take this point. You substitute and you form your equation. So with this one and our point 1, 3, we can substitute. We say y is equals to mx plus c. So our y, remember this is x and y. When you label it, makes your work easier in terms of substitution. So this is 3 is equals to m is this, negative 2 over 3. X you have 1 plus c. So Castro, be on standby. We have 3 there plus 2 over 3 is equals to c. What is the value of c? 3 plus 2 over 3. Yes?
11 over 3.
Is it? 11 over 3. So with c, we know we've already found the equation. So the equation is y is equals to, what is m? Negative 2 over 3x plus 11 over 3. Simple. That is 3 marks. Just like that. Then some of you will leave school that mathematics is hard. And then what I'd like to clarify here is that you can use any point. Even if you use negative 5, 7, you will still arrive at the same answer. But because we have exam and time is of essence, you choose the easier one to work with. And then this one that has got negative sign, it will complicate the whole process, especially when you're not a keen student. So always work with values that are easy to manipulate and get the answer within the shortest time possible, okay? Another way through which we can form equation of a straight line, number 3, is when given the x and y intercept. So we already talked about x and y intercept. So this will make it very easier for you to understand. So let us write the question in case so that you understand it better. So find the equation of a line whose x-intercept is -2 and y-intercept is 5. Very simple. You use the double intercept form. And the double intercept form is given by this formula: x over a plus y over b is equals to 1. This is the double intercept format, where a is the x-intercept, b is the y-intercept. So this formula is very important. So it is just a matter of replacing in your formula the double intercept form. So we'll just say x over -2 plus y over 5 is equals to 1. Pata LCM. LCM ya hawa ni 10. So when you simplify, you're going to get -5x plus 2y is equals to 10. I think that is right. So we take y the other side, x the other side. So that becomes that 5x plus 10. Then you simplify. Y will now be 5 over 2x plus 5. As a good student now, you must now do these things vice versa. You can take it from the answer upwards, where you can be asked, you are now given the answer and then you are told, can you find this intercept? So what do? You simply say, for you to get the y-intercept, you just say at y-intercept x is 0. So you replace everything in this equation, which is x, by 0. So you just say y is equals to 5 over 2 multiplied by 0 plus 5. So what is the y-intercept? Y-intercept is 5. But what is the coordinate? If you ask for the coordinate, you say y is equals to 0, 5. And then when you asked for the x-intercept, what do? You just say at x-intercept y is 0. So whenever you see y, you replace by 0. So you say 0 is equals to 5 over 2x plus 5. Unaleta hii huku, inakuwa -5 over 2x is equals to 5. Is it? Then you multiply by the reciprocal. You multiply the reciprocal of this could be 2 over -5 times 2 over -5. So this will cancel this. So x will be -2. Then when you ask for the coordinate, you say x is equals to -2, 0. Simple. So students, another way of forming an equation of a straight line is number 3. When given a graphical representation. When you are given a graph, you can still get the equation of a straight line. And for example, in exam, they give you this, They give you that. And then they say, this is y-axis, this is x-axis. And then they tell you, maybe this is -2 and this is 3. How can you form an equation of this line? xy. Already you have 2 points. I said very well that at any given point where the line cuts the y-axis or the vertical axis, that point is called the y-intercept. And at y-intercept, x is 0. So for you to get the coordinate of this point, you're going to write 0, 3. And then at any given point, the line cuts this horizontal axis, the x-axis, that is called the x-intercept. And at x-intercept, y is 0. So when you're giving the coordinate of this, it will be -2, 0. So you have 2 points now. You can get the equation. How do I get the gradient? I say gradient is equals to change in y over change in x. Yes? So I can label them. This is my x1, y1, x2, y2. Yeah. So y2 is 3 minus y1 0 over x2 is 0 minus in bracket. I told you be very keen with the signs. This is where most people, after their hard work, they spoil everything. So you get different answers from the rest. So that is 3 over 2. That is the gradient. So you can see that if you didn't place the sign well, x2 minus x1, you're going to get a different answer from the rest. So be very keen. So once you get this class, I said you can use any point. You can either choose this point or the other one. I said choose the one without signs to make your work easier. So I'll pick this. I'll say our equation is y is equals to mx plus c. Then we say our y is 3 is equals to, what about this? M is here, 3 over 2, x 0 plus c. So c, you see, is automatically 3 because if you multiply something by 0, it is 0. So our equation is y is equals to m, which is this, 3 over 2, x plus c. And I said, when you are given the graphical representation, you can also use the double intercept formula. I said the double intercept formula is x over a plus y over b is equals to 1. A is the x-intercept, b is the y-intercept. So you just replace. In math, you are given, where you replace x over a, what is a? -2 plus y over b, what is b? 3. Wewe kazi yako ni kuweka. Weka. This is LCM is 6, I think so. That is the LCM of that. So that is -3x plus 2y is equals to 6. I think so. So we have 2y here to be equals to 3x plus 6. Yeah, so y can be 3 over 2x plus 3. Anyhow, it's the how. So you choose the formula that gives you the right answer at the shortest time possible. The last way you can form an equation is when given when given a point and an angle. This is also a common question that is normally tested. How can you get the equation of a line when you are given a point and an angle? I want to give you a question so that you understand how it works. So the question reads, determine the equation Determine the equation of the line passing through a half, quarter and meets the x-axis at 71.57 degrees. Very good. So I want to give you a graphical representation of this. You are given a point and an angle. So this one we know now, common knowledge, x and y. And then we have a point, we have a line there. And this line, we are told it is making some angle with the x-axis. This is the x-axis. Look at that. It is making an angle here, theta, with this axis. And then you are now told to find the equation of the line. How do you go about it? Number one, check at this line. You will realize that when you have the point you are given there, which is maybe a half, quarter, then you have a dotted line or imaginary line. What you realize is that you have constructed something like a right angle triangle, and then we see that the hypotenuse is the line, and then the x-axis is the change in x, and the y-axis, which is the height of this triangle, is the change in y. So from SOHCAHTOA, we'll talk about SOHCAHTOA later, you will find that for you to find a line, we have SOHCAHTOA. We are going to discuss it later so that you understand. But for the basis of this, when you have an adjacent line and an opposite, the only formula you can use there is tan. So tan of theta is equals to opposite over adjacent. So that begs this. So when I get the tan of this, and I said opposite is change in y, and adjacent is change in x. So saying tan theta simply means gradient. You understand that? Because it is the opposite, and opposite is change in y, the vertical movement, and then the horizontal movement, change in x. So this one we had agreed it is the same as gradient. So gradient therefore is equals to tan of theta. So when you are given an angle, you simply get the tan of it. So simply press on your calculator that m is equals to tan 71.57 degrees. So meaning gradient is approximately 3. You press that on the calculator. Now with the gradient, it is now easy because we've said how to get the gradient of a line is gradient is equals to tan theta. Once you get the gradient, now for you to form the equation is very simple. You simply label this x and y, and you replace. You say y is equals to mx plus c. Then you replace y. Y is a quarter is equals to m is 3 into x a half plus c. Unaleta hii huku a quarter. Yes, Castro, you can press that. Minus 3 over 2 is equals to c. What is c? Negative 5 over 4. So our equation therefore is y is equals to m 3x minus 5 over 4. Simple. So I think we are done with the various ways in which we can form the equations of a straight line. We are done with that.